Hi everybody, my name's Kelly Phones and I am an educator here at Montavilla Sewing Centers located in Portland, Oregon. Today we're going to be working with the Janome 9450 and I'm going to be showing you a bunch of different ways to do a 1/4 inch stitch on this machine. Now there's probably a bunch that I haven't thought of. Well, maybe not that many, but I'm going to show you the ones that I've found most effective for me. I am a quilter, have this machine, love this machine, mainly because love the spotlight. You can't beat the spotlight. So the first thing we're going to do is get the machine set up for piecing. Now, right now I have the regular full zigzag foot on. So we're going to lock the machine, raise the foot. So we're changing the needle plate is what we're doing. Push that up. And if you want more information on all of these needle plates, be sure to watch the video that is dedicated to needle plates for this machine. So we're going to slip this one on, push it down, and slide our accessory tray back on. With this needle plate on, it is going to give me a more accurate straight stitch. It also limits the stitches I can do. Now on this page, I don't need any of these, so we're going to go to categories. And you can see that my quilt section is still highlighted. So we're going to come in here. These are all piecing stitches. This one is designed for center needle. What I want to use today, or for the moment, is this 1/4 inch piecing stitch. Now you'll notice when I selected this, it came up with the 1/4 inch piecing stitch, foot. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get my O foot. All of the Janome feet are marked in the middle right here. And this particular foot has a guide on it. They also make a foot without a guide if you don't like this. For the most part, I don't use the guide. It's largely a matter of personal preference. So I'm going to swap out that foot. And click that in place. Oh gosh. All right, why aren't you clicking on? There we go. Now you can see here that my needle is shifted quite far to the right. That's because from where the needle is positioned to the inner edge of that guide, that's going to be a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to line up my fabric under that foot, tuck it right up against the edge of that foot, drop the needle, and we can start sewing. I am working with flannel that is quite soft. If you are working with a flannel or a softer fabric, make sure you put a bit of stabilizer behind it. This is one layer of fabric. So it's probably more accurate here than I am here. A lot of that has to do with the angle that I'm sitting at. So setting up your machine this way is going to give you an excellent result. You do have a couple of other options, and for the most part when I'm piecing on my machine, I have it set up a little bit differently. So we are going to come in and we are going to change that needle plate again. So now we're going to put on our HP plate, otherwise known as the high performance plate. Let's make sure we reset that bobbin. we're just gonna put that bobbin right back in. All the plates have this bobbin system here, so you don't have to worry about pulling up your bobbin thread. And push that back down. Put the accessory back on. So using this needle plate, we have two options for feet. We have the straight stitch foot, and we also have the AccuFeed straight stitch foot. This is also called your HP2 foot. I find it's helpful that they're all labeled the same. So the HP plate, the HP2 foot. So this time we're actually going to swap out our ankle. And I find that using the straight stitch plate and the straight stitch foot gives me the best straight stitch, the most accurate straight stitch. So we're going to turn that, unlock the machine, and you'll notice that the needle has now shifted over to the left, and it is in the center of the straight stitch foot. So from the needle to the very outer edge of this foot is 1/4 inch. So we'll take this little piece here. Drop that foot. And all we have to do is stitch right down the edge of that. And see how nice and straight that stitch is? I have a little antique featherweight that belonged to my grandmother, and it is probably the best straight stitch machine I've worked on, and it's almost 100 years old. If I have the HP plate on, and I have this straight stitch foot on, it's pretty much like turning my cute little featherweight into a great big straight stitch machine. So I really, really like piecing this way. The other way, and I frequently have this foot on, is to go ahead and attach your AccuFeed foot. I'm not going to do that just yet. I do have a video for all of the AccuFeed feet, so make sure you watch that to learn how to attach this. The last area that I really like to work in, and we are going to change that needle plate again, and I don't mind swapping out my needle plates. It's so easy on this machine. You guys are getting a whole lot of education on how to do that, which is a good thing. Oops. Helps if you remember to take that bobbin out before you take the needle plate off, because it usually will pull your bobbin case out. So now I want to go back to our regular straight stitch plate. We're going to pop that in. It takes a few seconds to reset this. And the reason I'm doing this is because there is an area on the machine where you can program your seam length, which is a brilliant option when you're doing a lot of repetitive piecing. So if I'm doing, I don't know, 400 half square triangles and I'm chain piecing, and you guys all know what I'm talking about, I'm going to set up my machine this way. Or if I'm doing something where I want to stop consistently 1/4 inch before the edge of the fabric, I'm going to want to program that seam length. So let me go back a second and show you where button I just pushed. So you're going to find the option to program your seam length in your technique section, which is your t-shirt. So you want to come here, hit your arrow, and go into patchwork. Now this is the only section on the machine you're going to be able to do this. You can piece in other sections, but it won't memorize your seam length. So take this little bit, and what I like to do is get the fabric tucked up under here, kind of close to where I want to be. And I'm going to drop that needle because what I need to do is be right on the edge of that fabric when I start programming that. Exactly where it's placed, it doesn't matter because I'm doing this to program the first seam. So then I'm going to slow that way down and start the machine. Well, maybe not that slow. So we're going to go about like that because what's critical is that you don't pause until you get to the very end of that fabric. So it just takes a minute. And if you flub it, you just start over. All right, so now I am at the very end of that fabric and it's going to ask me if I want to do the same size. I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to cut that red. So the next one, let me just rotate this. You can see what it's going to do. So I'm going to drop that needle so I'm tucked up right against the front of that needle. Make sure your fabric isn't kind of buckled. Just tuck it gently against that. Drop that foot. And I usually set up the first one and then I test it out just to make sure it's the right length. And then I am good to go. So if you're doing a star quilt or tumbling blocks, anything with Y seams, this is a brilliant way to do it. And when you get to the end of your piece, it is going to stop. And you cut your thread, or you can tuck up another piece against it and keep chaining. Oops. So we've got the same seam length on both sides. Take advantage of that feature because I rarely have to spend hours marking my fabric anymore. If you want a different size, you just turn it off. Otherwise, that programmed seam length is going to stay there as long as you want to use it. Hope this has given you some ideas on how you can do your piecing on this machine. I have different methods for different projects. If you need any more help or information about this particular feature or the machine in general, give me a call at our Beaverton location. Happy sewing, everybody.